Welcome everyone to our guest lecture series. Today, we're very honored to have Professor SHIM Jae-hoon with us. And let me just briefly introduce our speaker. Professor SHIM Jae-hoon is a member of the Department of History at Dankook University in South Korea. He received his PhD in 1998 from the Department of East Asian Languages and Civilizations at the University of Chicago. His research interests include early Chinese history, East Asian historiography, memory studies, and comparative studies of ancient civilizations. He has published widely in leading academic journals, including Early China, Harvard Journal of Asiatic Studies, Tongpao, the Journal of Asian Studies, and the Journal of Chinese History. His major monograph, which is a study of the early history of the state of Jing, has just been translated into Chinese and published in Shanghai. So I have brought a copy with me today, and I'll pass it around the room for everyone to take a look. So today, Professor SHIM will speak on the cultural memory of Yao, Shun, and Yu in Shanxi province from the warring states through the Tang periods. Please join me in welcoming Professor SHIM.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much for coming for today's talk. I will talk with, I don't know if any of you have been accustomed to the concept cultural memory. I'd like to introduce the concept and how the concept of cultural memory to apply Chinese history. This study was inspired by a historical geography paper I published in 2017, where I focused on a place named ZHOU, mentioned in the Xinian from the Tsinghua bamboo slips. In the Xinian, is described as a region where King Ping of the ZHOU stayed for an extended period during his eastward migration in the 8th century BC. Traditionally, has been recognized as a capital of the Tang state, which is associated with Yao, the central figure of today's presentation. While most Chinese scholars have located all of the Xinian in the Xiangning, Shanxi province, I discovered that this interpretation only emerged in the early 7th century. My paper, which primarily used recently excavated evidence, proposed that this earth should be located in the Nanyang region of Henan province. In the course of my research, I also identified significant issues with the historical geography that links Yao, Shun, and Wei and their respective state, Tang, Wei, and Xia, to regions in Shanxi. To further explore this issue, I wrote 2 papers in Korean examining how this geographic understanding developed and transformed over time. One key point I'd like to mention is the title of my first paper, published 5 years ago. The title is Between Legend and History. I found that explaining this phenomenon solely through the lenses of legend and history was insufficient. Seeking a more appropriate theoretical framework, I came across Jan Assmann's theory of cultural memory. After reading his book, Cultural Memory and Early Civilization, I became deeply engaged with his ideas. In fact, I spent nearly 4 years translating the book into Korean, and it was published last year. The red color book is in the Korean version. That version is 14th foreign translation of the book. Chinese version was published in 2015. The Japanese version was published in 2024, 2 years ago. Today's presentation should be understood as a continuation of my earlier Korean language research, now reframed and substantially deepened through the conceptual lens of Jan Assmann's theory of cultural memory. This study explores how the cultural memory of Yao Shun was established in Shanxi from the warring state period to the Tang Dynasty. Yao Shun have long been revered as model sage kings, not just in China, but throughout pre-modern East Asia, including Korea and Japan. The 20th century witnessed major shift with the emergence of doubting antiquity, Yigu, and believing antiquity, Xingu, schools of thought. Although Yao Xunhui were downgraded to the state of myths or legends in the early 20th century, since the late 20th century, they, together with the politics associated with them, such as Tang Wixia, have once again become central figures in historical discourse. In addition to numerous scholarly works, many local governments across China seeking to associate themselves with these sage kings have reconstructed general historical sites, grand historical sites such as temples and tombs. Due to records in texts like Mozi, which mention that Shun farmed on Mount Li, Fungeng Li Shan, up to 21 different locations across China now claim a connection to Shun through Mount Li. Among these, Shanxi province stands out as the most significant, being traditionally regarded as homeland of 3 sage kings. In recent years, archaeologists in China have increasingly viewed the late Neolithic site of Taosi near Linfeng city in southwestern Shanxi as the possible capital of Yao. However, in texts connecting Yao Shunhui, it is nearly impossible to draw a clear distinction between myth or legend and historical facts. In this regard, Martin Kahn views the canon of Yao of the Shangsu as a foundational narrative of cultural memory shaped by ideological necessity. The same applies to the tribute of Wigong of the Shangsu section. Viewed in this light, re-examining the narratives of Yao Shunhui through the lens of cultural memory is both appropriate and necessary. Jan Assmann expanded Maurice Auerbach's concept of collective memory into what he termed cultural memory, which consciously extends back thousands of years. Cultural memory, often linked to a group's origins, became deeply connected to specific time, places, and collective identities through key figures and symbols. It also has a reconstructive quality, shaped by future expectations and hopes. Assmann cites the story of Exodus as a prime example of this type of memory, where myth and history blend, fostering the development of the Israelite monotheism. In this context, my focus has been on how the cultural memory of 3 sage kings become formatively established in China. I specifically explain how this memory took on tangible form in Shanxi and how this spatial manifestation contributed to their recognition as historical realities. Just as Auerbach argued that collective memory is shaped by particular spaces, Assmann emphasized the crucial role of memory landscapes in the formation of cultural memory. China's long tradition of geographic documentation further enriches this study, extending our understanding back to ancient times. The construction of ancestral temples, Simiao, and other memorial sites to honor sages has continued since the Han Dynasty and remains an important practice even today. The process of localization examined in this study can be divided into two key stages. First, drawing on both excavated and transmitted preaching texts, I investigate the emergence of and grounding of the cultural memory of Yaoxin in Shanxi. Second, the focus shifts to how these figures became associated with specific sites within Shanxi, through which their memory was established and spatially mapped. In this section, I highlight the historical locations linked to Yaoxin as recorded in major geographical texts. Taken together, this study illustrates one of Assmann's cultural claims, central claims, the crucial role of writing in the creation and ongoing transformation of cultural memory. It also emphasized the fluidity of such memory, corresponding a Korean scholar, Jang Jin-sung's keen observation that it is not the place that holds the memory, but the memory that creates the place. Before delving into these topics in detail, it is important to first outline the historical context in which the key sites associated with these sage kings have been preserved in Shanxi. To streamline the discussion, I will focus on two main sites. The Yao Temple in Linfen. The Yao Temple in Linfen is this area, southwestern part. The one, Jinzi Temple in Taiwan is this area. Shanxi is the red, everybody knows. This is the Yao Temple, located in south of Linfen City. In southwestern Shanxi, is one of the oldest Yao Temple in China. Originally built on western side of the Feng River, it was relocated to the eastern side at the end of the 3rd century AD, and later moved to its current location in 685. The earliest surviving reference linking Linfen to Yao's capital comes from Yan Shigu in the 7th century, who cited Ying Shao from the later Han period in his annotation. Who cited Ying Shao from the later Han period in his annotations to the Hanshu Dilizhi section, where it is noted that Pingyang County of Hedong Commandery, present-day Linfen area, was Yao's capital, Yaodu. However, this connection is absent in the original Hanshu text. Despite this, many later geographical texts include the Jingguozhu of the Hou Hanshu, compiled in 455 CE, firmly identify Pingyang as Yao's capital. Approximately 35 kilometers south of the Yao Temple in the east, the Taoshi archaeological site, which many Chinese scholars now regard as Yao.
Wi-Fi 㗎？
It is crucial to note, however, that the earliest.
我有個聯名，有個自己嘅。
Please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. We can hear you. Yeah, I don't know. Is Gary here? No. Okay.
Can you?
Hey. No. I forgot how to do that.
Not sure about that. I'm not expert.
係咪 commercial 嗰個啊？ Gosh.
What's that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. Mute all. Mute all. Yes. Match. Despite this, many later geographical texts, including the Jingguozhu of the Hou Hanshu,
firmly identified Pingyang, the Lymphan area, as Yao's capital. Approximately 35 kilometers south of this Yao temple is the Taosi archaeological site, which many Chinese scholars now regard as Yao's capital. It is crucial to note, however, that the earliest evidence connecting Lymphan to Yao from the 2nd century CE through the now lost commentary of Yingxiao, and not directly from the Hanshu. To understand the historical landscape of shrine in Shanxi, we must also consider the Jinzi temple in Taiyuan. This is Jinzi temple in Taiyuan. Even though it is not directly connected to Yaoxin and Wei, Jinzi was initially established to honor Tang Shuhui, the founder of the Jin state, the first historical polity representing Shanxi. The first known record of existing Jinzi temple appears in the 6th century Shuijingyu, which mentions the Jin River west of present-day Jinyang near Taiyuan. Li Daoyan, the author of Shuijingyu, identified this region as the area Tangyao, where Tang Shuhui was infected. Interestingly, Taiyuan was not original part of Jin state's domain, which was actually located in the middle and low reaches of the Feng River Valley in southwestern Shanxi. This fact is supported by the archaeological discoveries of the Jin Rose Cemetery in the ZHOU eastern area near Homa. It was not until the 6th century BC that the Jin state began to control the Taiyuan region. Nevertheless, by the 6th century CE, an association between Taiyuan and the Jin state became firmly established, largely due to the presence of the Jinzi temple, and more importantly, the misinterpretation of earlier texts like the Zhuozhuang. We like two examples, other sites in Shanxi associated with Yao, Shun, and Wei, as well as their historical foundation in transmitted text, often lack solid evidence. This is the huge park for the mausoleum of Shun Di in Wincheng area. This was first established in the Tang Dynasty. This one is also very interesting. This is Dayu Miao in Hejin in Shanxi, Hancheng area in Shanxi province. They face each other. It was established in the Ming Dynasty. This is the upper right part is present day picture. So nowadays they disappeared. Another one, this one is also very interesting. This is called Wangcheng, the city wall of the first king of Xia Dynasty, Wei. But it was, every scholar, every archaeologist agree that this was built in the Warring State period. This is a Wei State wall. It's not the Wei related site. So how do this connection appear in excavated text, which might preserve more of their original context than the transmitted literature? It is well established that Yao Xun Wei do not appear in the oracle bone inscriptions from the late Shang period. However, two polities, Tang and Yang, identified by oracle bone scholars as being located in what is now southwestern Shanxi, are noteworthy due to their connect to Tang Shuhui and perhaps Yao. Several inscriptions indicated that both Tang and Yang maintained close relationship with the Shang kings until the late Shang period. Despite Tang's association with fief granted to Tang Shui after the Zhou conquest of Shang, it is significant to find direct evidence linking this Tang in the oracle-born inscriptions with Yao or Tang Shui. In the Diriji of Han Shu, Yang called Yangxian is listed one of the 24 counties in the Hedong commandery, corresponding to the present-day Hongtong area. Excavations at Western Zhou site in Yongningbao, Hongtong area, have led some scholars to propose that the Tang, the fiefdom granted to Tang Shui in the transmitted text, was actually Yang, placing the original fief near Hongtong area. Although Tang and Yang indeed coexisted in southwestern Shanxi during the late Shang period, the character Yang and Tang and Yang, both belonging to the same phonetic group, were often used interchangeably in the preaching text. The Yao Gui inscription from the early Western Zhou period fits well to this context either. It states that the Yao Gong cast a bronze tureen for his wife, named Yao, in the 28th year of the King Cheng or King Kang's reign. This coincides with the king's impeachment of the Lord of Yang, Fu Jin, generally believed to be Xie, a son of Tang Shui, and the second lord of the Jin, the state of Jin. Zhu Fenghan, reading the Yao in the inscription as Yao, the sage king, speculates the Yao Gong in the inscription was a descendant of Yao or a nobleman residing in the Yao's original homeland. He also notes that Yao Gong's wife shares the same name, Yao, as Shun's lineage, suggesting a marital connection between the descendant of Yao and Shun. Recent discoveries of bronze inscriptions, including Yao Gong Gui, lend further weight to the possibility that Yang was original fief of the Tang Shui. It also supports the existence of Tang and Yang polity in Shanxi by the late Shang period. However, it remains difficult to determine whether the Tang or Yang mentioned in the oracle-born and bronze inscriptions have any connection to the Tang identified as Yao's capital in transmitted text. No oracle-born scholars have identified Yang and Tang's location as Linfen, traditionally regarded as Yao's capital. Unlike oracle-born scholars, which contain no direct references to Yaoxin or Wei, the Midwestern Zhou period Bingongxi inscription, published in 2002, mentioned the deeds of Wei in governing the land, though it provides no geographical inscription information as found in transmitted text. Since the 1990s, Yaoxin Wei have appeared frequently in whirling stage period ZHOU bamboo slips, reflecting their popularity at the time. For example, the Zhigao from the Shanghai Museum ZHOU bamboo slip mentions a place called Dongtu in relation to Shun's farming. Scott Cook suggests that this Dongtu might actually be Dongtu, eastern land, and Tangtu. Tang is the capital of Yao, possibly linking it to the Shanxi region. However, Cook also notes that Dongtu refers to an area east of Chengzhou, Luoyang, aligning with Mencius' view of Shun as a man, from the eastern barbarian, Dongyi. Longsheng Shi text, another true bamboo slip text, also mention areas where Yao and Shun were active. It states that Yao resided between Danfu and Diling, though their exact locations remain unknown. The text further describes Shun's activities, farming at ZHOU, making pottery by riverside, Hebin, and fishing in Leizhe to provide for his parents. Scholars have debated the location of these sites, with some like Li identifying them with Shanxi region, while others argue for Shandong. The text also references place names like Lishan and Mingtiao, which are associated with Shun. But again, the locations remain contested. Traditionally, the Longshengshi contains no place names related with flood control effort in Shanxi. In conclusion, while the view that Shanxi was the region in which Yao and Shun were active is not entirely without basis and may have seeded their later cultural memory, the fragmentary nature of the evidence and the significant chronological gap make it difficult to confirm this with confidence. The ZHOU, which will be examined next, may provide further insight. The ZHOU, generally recognized as a work from the Warring States period, is rich with accounts that contribute to the cultural memory of various legendary tribes. One key example appears in the first year of Duke Zhao, a passage that I view as a significant source for linking Yao to Shanxi. The story took place in 541 BC, when Duke Ping of Jin fell ill, prompting the Marquis of Zheng sent Zhishan to check on him. During this visit, Zhishan recounts Jin's history, highlighting the lineages of Tang Yao, Xia, and Jin through Tang Shui. The story narrates how the two sons of Gao Xunshi clashed, resulting ongoing warfare. Hou Di intervened by sending the eldest son, Bo, to Shangqiu to oversee the Chen constellation, the three stars of Scorpio, while the younger son, Shi Zhen, was sent to Daxia to govern the Shen constellation, the seven stars of Orion. This division suggests that Bo and Shi Zhen ruled the region of Shang and Xia, respectively, by aligning with the constellations. Tang, likely located in the Daxia, governed by Shi Zhen, followed the Shen constellation and played a role in both Xia and Shang dynasties, with Tang Shui being the last ruler. At this point, a new narrative emerges. In the beginning of the Western Zhou, King Wu's wife, Yi Jiang, had a dream during her pregnancy in which Di instructed that their child be named Wei and inscribed in Tang. When the child was born with the character Wei on his palm, it was foretold he would prosper in Tang. This Tang Shui, distinct from the earlier Tang Shui, was brother of King Cheng and the founder of Jin. This story stretches Jin's history back to the Tang of the Xia and Shang dynasties, and even further back to the time of Shi Chen, the son of Gao Xunshi, who migrated to Daxia under Hou Di's command. In discussing the pivotal role this story played in cultural memory expansion of Yao Xunhui among later generations, I focus on the interpretation of Du Wei, the first commentator of the ZHOU. Drawing on perspective possibly dating back to the late Han period, we inferred that Gaoxin was Emperor Ku, and the Hodi was Yao, who was known as Emperor Ku's son. He also identified Daxia as Jinyang area, modern-day Taiwan, indicating that the people of Tang were also located in the Daxia region. However, as mentioned earlier, the Taiwan region only came under Jin's control during the late spring and autumn period, making it difficult to connect this region to Xia. Similarly, the Tang Shui was infused with in the beginning of the Western Zhou period had no ties to Taiwan. Moreover, Hodi, who is rarely mentioned in preaching text, was regarded by later commentators as a celestial figure like Tian or Tiandi. The ZHOU text also implies that Hodi was a superior figure to Gaoxin, complicating the father-son relationship proposed by Du. There is little evidence to firmly identify Hodi as Yao. Traditionally, the widely accepted connection between Yao and Tang or Taodang Shi has faced scholarly debates. Like a modern academic debate on the relationship between Yao and Tang or Taodang Shi, the ZHOU offers room for dual interpretations of Yao's connection to Taodang Shi. Conflict stories related Yao and Taodang Shi also coexist within the same context of the ZHOU. Recently discovered true bamboo slips indicate that various quasi-historical narratives began to emerge and circulate during the Warring State period with a stronger emphasis on conveying moral lessons than on historical accuracy. Yet the fact that Tang Shui, the founder of Jin, was impaled at Tang after the Duke of Zhou's conquest of the Shang, and that this Tang or Yang is attested in the oracle bone inscriptions, makes it difficult to dismiss the entire account as mere fiction. The memory of a political entity known as Tang or Yang, traceable at least to the late Shang period, together with the fragmentary genealogies of ancient rulers, likely provided the basis for anchoring cultural memory in Shanxi, central Dongjin, in deep antiquity. This anchoring was accomplished through the incorporation of a dream narrative, a literary device widely employed at the time into the ZHOU. Such a process accords with Jan Hassmann's concept of cultural memory, in which the distinction between history and myth loses its relevance. As evidenced in the Warring States text, including the true bamboo manuscript, narratives of Yao, Shun, and Wei became increasingly elaborate and diverse, extending the foundational memory of the Sinaitic world far into the past. However, much like the ZHOU story was used as evidence for the construction of Jin's temple in Taiwan in honor of Tang Shui, intellectuals from the Han Dynasty onward began to view Shanxi as the homeland of Yao, and later Shun and Wei, based on this evolving cultural memory. Building on ZHOU, the ZHOU of Han Shu provided a strong foundation for later scholars to further expand this memory. The Han Shu is a dynastic history covering the period from the first year of the Emperor Gaozu of the Han in 206 BCE to the fourth year of Wang Mang in 23 BCE. It was completed by Banggu in 80 AD. Banggu was the first historian to include a section dedicated to geography known as the ZHOU, a model that later became a standard in Chinese official histories. Much as Sima Qian records collecting accounts from village elders during his travel concerning sites associated with the Huangdi, Yao, and Shun, it is possible that relics such as shrines existed near the alleged birthplace or activity areas of these sage kings by the Han Dynasty. Nevertheless, in the ZHOU of Hanshu, Banggu mentions only two sites in Shanxi connected to Yao and Tangshuyi. The first site is the shrine of Mount Yao, Yaoshanzi in Fufang County, present-day Yongji area. This is Fufang County. This is present-day Yongji area. In Hedong Commentary, the shrine likely allows from the belief that this area was historically linked to Yao. The southwestern part of Shanxi has long been recognized as the homeland of Yao Xinhui, but this connection is not fully reflected in the Hanshu. For example, in the Pingyang County, modern-day Linfen area, which has been recognized as the capital of Yao and where the Yao temple still stands, Banggu only mentions that Zheng Zhi, the great-grandson of Han Wuzi, resided there. It had an iron office. He traces the history of Linfen only back to early spring and autumn period, without mentioning its association with Yao. Similarly, the Taiyuan Commentary in Shanxi, which is located in this area, Xinjiang area, this area. Similarly, the Taiyuan Commentary in Shanxi mentioned that the DRG offers little connection to the three sage kings, except for Xinjiang County, modern-day Taiyuan. Here, Banggu notes that this was the ancient Tang state, Wudangguo, as mentioned in the Shijing and the Tangfeng section. King Cheng of Zhou conquered Tang and infected his younger brother, Shui, there. Although Banggu doesn't explicitly connect this Tang state with Yao, in the history of each county, he laid aside the narrative by Zishan from the Zhouzhan I mentioned before to provide a broader view of early Shanxi history and describes Hedong as the residence of Tang Yao. However, by associating Fuban with Yao and identifying Jinyang as the ancient Tang state, the DRG of Hanshu laid foundation for the cultural memory of Yao, Shun, and Wei to become deeply rooted in Shanxi over the following centuries of the Tang period. Significant shift can be observed in the geographical section of the Hou Hanshu and Wei Shu. As mentioned earlier, the Hou Hanshu confirms Pingyang County in Hedong Commentary as the capital of Yao, Yaodu, likely following Ying Xiao's commentary. Additionally, its annotation on the state of Tang in Jinyang, Taiyuan area incorporates a reference from Zheng Xuan's Mao Shupu, stating Yao first established his capital here and later moved it to Pingyang in Hedong. The Wei Shu adds further to this tradition, documenting an edict from the 16th year of Xiaowen of Northern Wei Dynasty that formalized the worship of Emperor Yao in Pingyang, Emperor Shun in Guangning. Guangning is present-day modern-day ZHOU in Hebei province. With the Great in Anning. Meanwhile, moreover, it identified 3 additional Yao-related sites in southwestern Shanxi. The left development during the Northern Wei period under the ruler of Toba clan of Shanpei people invite various interpretations. Many of Yao's temples that emerged during this time, however, may have been viewed as historically unfounded by later Tang and Song scholars or had disappeared by those periods. Notably, in the Mianhe Junxianzhi, the oldest surviving comprehensive geographical record compiled by Li Zifu in the 813, the Yao temple listed during the Northern Wei period in southwestern Shanxi had disappeared from the record. Nevertheless, the Mianhe Junxianzhi, a key geographical text from the Tang period, lists 4 Yao-related sites, 2 of Shun and 4 for Wei, particularly in Hedong County, formerly Fubon, during the Han period, which already had Yao-related associations. Several Shun-related sites were incorporated due to the legend of Shun farming at Mount Li. Alongside the Shun temple and Shun's residence, the Erfei altar, Erfei Tan, which commemorates Shun's 2 wives, and the ancient Tao city, tied to the story that Shun made pottery by the riverbank, were also recorded. By the time of the Mianhe Junxianzhi, the southwestern region of Shanxi had transformed into a key center of cultural memory for Yao, Shun, and Wei. Moreover, there was a clear nationwide trend of increasing number and expanding locations of such ceremonial sites. The figure in the left is Han Dynasty. In the right is Tang Dynasty. There are more, Yao Xunyi related sites in Shanxi in Tang period. As previously discussed, the relatively abundant literary record loosely linking Yao Xunyi with Shanxi since the Warring State period were likely the primary reason for this deep-rooted cultural memory of these 3 sage kings in the region. However, the available sources up to the mid-5th century provide little information on the circumstances surrounding the construction and management of the temple and other sites associated with Yao, Shun, and Wei, sites that must have already existed in Shanxi by the time. This gap in the historical record appears to reflect a broader lack of comprehensive study of the history of temple cults from the Han Dynasty onward. It is possible that such efforts were primarily led by later scholar officials, with some level of involvement from the central government. However, it is important to consider that following the fall of the Han Dynasty, Han Empire, the authority of the central government had significantly weakened. Jan Hansman argues that cultural memory is deliberately constructed by highly specialized experts, and its transmission is strictly regulated. In this regard, I would like to highlight the formal designation of sacrificial sites for the 3 ancestral sage kings, Yao Xunyi, declared in 4 92 as part of Emperor Xiaowen of the Northern Race syncretization policy. This edict manifests that Confucian-style sacrifices be offered to the four former sage kings, including the Duke of ZHOU, in the mid-months of each season under the supervision of the local officials in the designated regions. Furthermore, Emperor Wen of the Sui dynasty followed the precedent set by Emperor Xiaowen by reorganizing the imperial ancestor sites alongside sacrificial ceremonies for past emperors and kings, including Yao Shunhui. He relocated the official sacrificial site for Shun from Guangning to Hedong, Huban area in Shanxi, a move that appears to have reinforced Shanxi's status as a central hub for worship of these ancient sage kings. During the subsequent Tang Dynasty, the Confucian-style sacrificial system dedicated to former emperors and kings, including Yao Shunhui, became even more refined and elaborate. The expansion of sites associated with three sage kings in Shanxi, as recorded in the Junshen seems closely tied to the dissemination of cultural memories of sage kings, a process largely driven by northern origin states that had established Shanxi as their base. By the Tang period, efforts to preserve and expand these cultural memories in Shanxi increasingly relied on earlier records, where the boundaries between recent history remained indistinct, leading to what Li Feng, the professor in Columbia University, described endless discrepancies. However, these inconsistencies did not seem to matter to local communities who regarded sage temples or shrines as central to their folk beliefs. Therefore, the integration of a religious role based on cultural memory may have contributed to the continued expansion of temples dedicated to Yao Xunhui, not only in Shanxi, but also across the country. Notably, by the Yongzhong era of the Qing dynasty, the number of ancient temples for these three sage kings in Shanxi had exceeded more than 70, with sites distributed across nearly the entire provinces. The map here is for the whole Yao Xunhui related site in the Yongzheng period, documented in the Yongzheng Shanxi Tongji. To the best of my knowledge, the process by which local religious traditions were incorporated into the cultural memory of sage kings in Shanxi remains unclear. In this context, the Zhenwei theories, which gained in prominence in relation to Yao and Shun from the later Han period onward, they may have played a role, alongside the widespread influence of Taoism and Buddhism up to the Tang period. While the worship of Yao Shunhui as local divine figures, similar to the evolution of the Guanhui cult, may have been continuously reinterpreted and reshaped in response to shifting historical, social, and religious conditions. Their role as folk deities does not appear to have been as fluid, adaptable, or widespread as that of Guanhui. These issues, however, lie beyond the scope of the present study and may be addressed in the future research. By examining sources ranging from the oracle-born inscriptions to Mianhua Junshen, this study explores how the cultural memory of Yao Xunhui was seeded, anchored, established, and mapped in Shanxi. More broadly, it shows how the historicization of these sage kings within cultural memory played a crucial role in shaping Chinese national identity over the long course of history. The materials I have examined here demonstrate that writing functioned as a key form of what Asman calls intermediate story in the formation of Sage King's cultural memory. Through textual transmission, that is, through intertextuality, historical narratives were preserved, reinterpreted, and mobilized across time. In this sense, the source is closely correspond to Asman's definition of cultural memory, drawing on Conrad Ellie's notion of a message returned to later within an extended situational framework. Such a framework, by its nature, is fluid and dynamic. The continued construction and maintenance of temples dedicated to Yaoxunwi, not only in Shanxi but across China, even today, clearly demonstrates the remarkable adaptability of their memory. From this perspective, both the documentation of Yaoxunwi by the deconstruction of the Yaoxunwi by the doubting antiquity movement in the early 20th century and the reconstruction by the believing antiquity trend since the late 20th century can be understood as part of the same ongoing process of cultural memory formation. The localization of the Sagehood in Shanxi by the Tang period reflect this dynamic as well. As this study has argued, approaching ancient sources where myth and history are often inseparable through the lens of cultural memory may move away from a direct search for an elusive historical reality. Yet, it brings us close to understanding the context in which the materials were produced and why they continue to matter over time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this rich and informative talk. And now let's open the floors for questions and answers. We have about half an hour. So as Professor Shim indicated, the discussion can be in either English or Chinese. So please feel free to pose questions in whatever language you like. Also online, the online audience can unmute yourself if you can hear me.
There's a hand there.
Yeah, Igor.
What I read the article. One big question is why the chance? Because I do not really think you cover much of the urban part. And it is not historical terming. So for much of the period that you cover, the modern notion of Shanxi did not exist. So then what do we get from applying this modern notion to the antiquity? So it's not that I'm criticizing you. And from the book that you have shared, I do not question your knowledge of geography. So it's not that I'm patronizing, not at all. I'm really, what I'm suggesting is whether it might be possible to find geographical terms, maybe from antiquity, that would be more localized and that would match your specific geographical focus, perhaps a bit more close.
The main reason I chose Shanxi is, because I know well about Shanxi. As you saw the book, but another reason that is more important is that there are still many sites remain in Shanxi for the Sage King. And in China, there are very few places, very few provinces which cover the heritages of the three sage kings together. Shanxi is probably the only place which include three of them, Yao Xunhui together. That is the reason I chose.
I understand this part,
Yeah.
but we have so many provinces more than China.
Yeah.
But once again, when we go back to antiquity,
Mhm.
other than Shanxi, Henan,
Mhm.
well, what else do we have?
Uh-huh.
Maybe a little bit of Shanghai, but even that is very rare.
Mm.
So it's not that you have 20 provinces, and out of these, Shanxi happens to be the most important.
Mhm.
But really, out of the two provinces in the historically important range in China, the northern part, which is the northern bank of the Yellow River, the Fen River Valley, those regions happen to be the most closely affiliated with the Sage Kings. Yes.
Yeah. Just you have any other reason? You have any other place to come into your mind for the Sage Kings in China?
Indeed, the historical, so Luoyang region, and there are parts of the Xia sites to the south of the Yellow River.
Mm.
But again, the Xia sites for me is probably more of mythical memory than evidence-based history.
Mm.
So I would not say whether what is considered to be the Xiacheng.
What Xiacheng?
Yes, well, there are the Xia ruins.
Xia.
So whether we affiliate them with either the great or the late Xia kings, I don't know. I do not have an idea on this. But so the early ones probably happen to be more to the south, but there are also Xia sites on the other side. But the later, like the Shun and the ZHOU, they clearly are on the north, or on the south and on the east. Yeah, so there is, and you may further relate this to the impressive sites of Taosi.
Yeah. That's another reason. And another place which includes the three Sage Kings is Shandong. Shandong is also important, and we can go back to antiquity in the area. So only the two places. So I was thinking to compare the two areas, how they developed the ideas for the sages, the region for the homeland of Sage Kings or something like that. But yeah, I'm now thinking.
Thank you. It's a very rich talk, and honestly, I need more time to digest, and I would love to read your paper in future, which I have many questions, but I guess I will restrict myself to maybe two.
Yeah.
First is I'm really intrigued by the 职场 account, the 左传. Could you please go back to that slide of the 职场 slot?
执产 story. 资产 yes. 资产
It's dated to hopefully dated to the late very long this. But to be honest, I couldn't really see the very strong connection between Yao or Shun and Tang Shu in the story. I actually checked the original text, and my impression is that what Zhi Shan tried to explain is why there were two Tang Shu Yu. The first one being is of course the founder of the Jing state, and also the son of King Wu, right? Whereas the other is living in the Shang dynasty, preceding dynasty.
Right.
So, and also ruled the same place but a different person. So it seems that there were Tang Shuyi was already So that's one some Tang stories or story around memories around Tang already attribute this person, this figure, memorial figure, to the Shang dynasty rather than well, the more or less historical Tang Shuyu, right? Unlike yes. So however, but still, the connection between well, regardless which Tang Shuyu with Yao or Shun, either Yao or Shun is I would say unclear. Yes. So from your story or from your presentation, I got the sense that the firm establishment or the sort of at the time when the cultural memory around Yao is closely associated with the region, either Pingyang or Jingyang, sort of, were could be dated to the late Eastern Han period, either Yin Shao or the Shui Jingzhu, or of course the Widou period, Wei Jing accounts. So why were sort of the place all of a sudden became associated with the memory of Yao? Yes. Why? Why? Yes. Why would this association emerge during that period? That's my first question.
Yeah, the first one, there are two Tang Shui in the Zhoushan. The first one might be associated with the Tang or Yang state in the oracle bone inscription. That's one possibility, but nobody can prove that. No evidence to prove. So that's the reason I use the term cultural memory. If you use that term, if it depends on the Yaran's frame, we can dilute the inaccuracies in
I absolutely agree that the history and of the myth are inseparable in these early accounts. That's this I certainly agree. But I'm curious about why would this what would this such certain connection being constructed in a certain period of time?
That's important. In the Han Dynasty, I didn't mention much in today's talk. The Changshu became one of the five classics, and Yaodian and the Wigong are very, very important. And in addition to the big changes as canon, the emperor of the Han Emperor, Han Dynasty, the Liu family, they identify their genealogy with Yao. Right. Wang Mang tried to identify his genealogy with Shun. But in the Han Dynasty, there are still no clear, pursuit of establishing the Simiao of Yao Shun in any area. But that kind of, new trend in the Han Dynasty might, provide the people in the local area to establish that kind of connection. That's kind of beginning.
Thank you. And my second one, I'm happy that you brought up the temples, because my second question is related to temples. So, well, I also read Yang Asman's book actually. So one of the characteristics of cultural memory, according to Asmanian accounts, two Asmans actually, is that the cultural memory rely less on materiality, right? Rely on the transmission of cultural memory, largely rely on text rather than material objects. So they don't really need the monument to be transmitted, rather like a priest or a transmitter can transmit the memory by text. So which seem to in contrast to the construction of temples, which because why would these temples be built actually pretty late. Well, most of them were built in the Yongzheng or in Qing dynasty. Many of them.
Yeah, that's
So it seems to be a very relatively recent thing compared to the the whole framework of Tangshu Yu accounts.
right.
Yes. So why would that once again relate to my first question? Why would the construction of temples all of a sudden appear? And also, second, were these sort of memories, sort of local memories, competing with each other, given that there are so many places claim themselves to be the birthplace of the of Yao or Shun or and Yu. So is there some competing memories among these local accounts? Do you know any? Yeah,
That's also natural. In the in the traditional period, there might be some kind of competition, among areas. Another important thing for the widespread of the Sumiao, Yaoshun related Sumiao, is it's very big question. I need to study more about the kind of construct the theoretical thing, but in the beginning, by the Tang period, cultural memory probably motivated to construct many, not that many at the time, several places. But from that area, from that period, the local people used the temples as their worship place. So it became, it changed into local folk, center of local folk. So there might be another reason for, like exploding especially in the Yongzheng period. So I'd like to study that more, but I'm not a specialist for the Qing dynasty, so it's not easy.
Just to little bit just I think I agree that asking right is contrast between textual and ritual, but I also think that perhaps intentionally he overdrives it because the ritual thing certainly does not disappear after the text comes into place. But what does happen, and here I think we should agree with us, is after you have text in place, text starts playing the lead role. And whatever ritual you add, you have to align it with text and not the other way around. So in that sense, I think that his framework does make sense. As for the proliferation of the sites, I think that we see it repetitively in multiple religious traditions, because you think about how many nails were spread in the Christian world that supposedly were used in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, or how many remnants of the Buddha's body there were in the South Asian realm. So again, first you have the textual tradition, and then you have multiple local communities that develop this strong desire to take part in it somehow and acquire a relic or a material sign that would allow them to relate their small place to this larger memory.
Yeah, that's a very good point. But the one thing I'd like to mention, or the development of cultural memory in folk, popular folk religion, is that Wandi Miao is all over China, right? Even in Korea, even in the Joseon dynasty, in Korea we had Wandi Miao. In that case, it's not related with his birthplace, just for folk belief. But in Yao Xinyi's case, it's indeed everybody in the geographic text. For example, in the Taiping Han Wijie in the Song dynasty, in that text, establishing a temple related to Yao Xinyi, they provided the reason. In that area, Yao visited that area. Yao, in the summer, Yao took a rest in the region. So many local stories was, made at the time. So that might be the reason, like Guandiniao, which is, prolified, very widespread all over China. The Simiao or sites of the sage kings are very limited, still very limited. So that's the reason, many medieval period historians are working on the Simiao. It's very, very, important topic, big topic for their studies. But not very many scholars are focused on Yao Xun's case because of the number is limited. That's what I found.
Just to follow. So sorry, I came in late because of another meeting before yours. But based upon the later part of your talk, also the questions and answers, I feel this topic is very interesting. The cultural memory. Yeah. But for your but there's a for your conclusion part, I think it just related to the question that the gentleman asked. It's about the paradox between many and one, right? So you go back to can you go to the yes yeah. I'm just curious because the first you say an historicization of the Sage Kings, and then you use the the concluding phrase as Chinese national identity. So this one I'm just curious, because but I missed your previous the former part, the first part. But why you use the term national identity? Cultural identity. You see what I mean? Yeah. And also the identity. It is a singular, the one identity or many kind of identities.
Yeah. Actually,
so that's very curious.
Just very good point. The paper will be published in a journal in this June. The journal editor suggested me to cut this part. So while I prepared the article, I changed the part. Instead of using the term, I cited Sima Qian's comment. Sima Qian in the Wudi Wenji, the first Wenji of the Shiji, Sima Qian mentioned from Huangdi to Shun and Wei, the Sage Kings, all the Sage Kings, all those are same surname, but the state name are different, state names. So he put together. Sima Qian tried at that time. Put together as one lineage line or something like that. So I don't know if I use the term national identity, it's too big, but it began already at that time. So many later scholars just consider Sima Qian's phrasing as kind of canon. That's historical canon, right? Or Wudi Wenji, yes, also kind of canon. So that's provided kind of very deep-rooted ideas as a single, not, I don't know if I use national, but as kind of, single line. Yes, already established in the Han Dynasty. Yeah.
Could be used imperial.
Imperial. Yeah. So the royal family in the Han Dynasty, Liu family also tried to pursue their genealogy to Yao. They became the descendant of Yao. Wang Mang became the descendant of Shun. And the other Wei dynasty, Cao Cao's neighbor, the Cao Cao's descendant, they also try to connect Shun.
Very interesting. Yeah, and also I think the many and one. Actually, I do research very different from yours. Yeah, I do research on the actually the Catholic missions in later Imperial China, the Qing dynasty, and the Catholic belief, right? And so it's there's the Marian devotions. I mentioned about the Christianity, right? Mary. So basically, you can use 玛利亚信仰、圣母信仰, the Marian devotions. But it's in the Chinese Marian devotions is very different from the like so-called European Marian devotions, the form, the patterns, kind of, But even in Europe, there are also many different forms of Marian devotions, and so that's why I think I once wrote in one article is titled "The Many Faces," the many faces of Our Lady. So basically, it's quite interesting, a paradoxical kind of rhetoric. Even though, for example, Yao, Shun, you mentioned different temples, local communities, maybe they focus on different aspects. These are just the many, I think, forms, right? Many forms. But it seems that finally they refer to this one person, like Mary or Yao, the Sage King. Right. So it's quite an interesting, kind of very interesting case study. Yeah.
We probably have time for one last question with 3 minutes left. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Okay. Okay.
No.
The second one is really a question or not?
You didn't finish. That's not a question.
That's not a question.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, then we can probably just stop here. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much.